Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us again for today's Plus Gift Economy chat. A New Hope is the theme of today, and the goal of what I wanted to talk about today, and I have an amazing panel of guests to really do the bulk of the talking with us, is the idea of trying to work into this new economy. And for the sake of this discussion, allow me to define the new economy as sort of anything that is sharing, sustainable, gift model based, anything that's sort of trying to break the traditional cash-based or money-based or capitalistic transaction-based type of economy into a way of dealing with people on a more human-based basis. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, and what I wanted to talk about today and have the panel discuss today is some of the different ways that people are doing this now, some of the work that they're doing, and sort of how it all ties in. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce everybody that's on the panel and give them a moment to introduce themselves and talk about what they're doing, particularly in light of the new economy, and then we'll get the discussion going. So I'm just going to go down the list here. Jason Spencer is with us. Jason, say hi.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me, Adrian.
Go ahead and tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
what you've been doing.
sure. Yeah, so I'm based in Asheville, North Carolina, and I run a heart-centered business incubator called the Flight Formula. The Flight Formula is essentially both a live retreat model as well as an online incubation program. And we really help people kind of discover exactly what their gift and their purpose is in the world and help them find a way to really come alive in that and to be able to pursue that that gift and that vision through a sustainable business model using things like gift economy, pay what you want pricing, and various sustainable methods to incubate the dream. So we're helping people move away from the solopreneurship model into what we call a tribalpreneurship model, using the model of tribes, which is a close-knit community of people that you're surrounded by in your process that are all going through a journey together to build something new for themselves. And it's just a really great heart-centered process that we have going.
That sounds amazing. We definitely want to get into that as well. Marie Goodwin is with us. Good morning, Marie.
Hi, everyone.
Where are you calling? Where are you chiming in from, and what are you up to these days?
I am from Media, Pennsylvania, so I actually live only about a half an hour from Adrian. And I don't know, gift economics has really sort of taken over my life through volunteerism in the Transition Town movement here in Media, Pennsylvania. I became really interested in alternative economics, and we, as a group here, started a TimeBank about 3.5, almost 4 years ago now, and it's been really going well. And I just became very, very interested in working in the gift model, and I started an herbalism business that was based in gifting, and where I would create herbal remedies for people, and they would pay what they wanted for them, and I did it as a CSA model. And our transition town has recently opened a FreeStore where everything is also gifted away. And what I found is that having a larger community behind you who is enthusiastic about these ideas really helps make it makes it easier to do this work if people around you understand the model. I also have the pleasure of working with Charles Eisenstein, and the work that we do together is completely in the gift as well. So he speaks around the world in the gift. People pay him what they can and want to pay him. He doesn't charge a speaking fee. And in turn, the work that I do for him, I do what needs to be done, and he pays me what he can when he can. And it feels really like a very authentic way to give to the ideas that I'm working for in my life on a lot of different levels. And so I enjoy that work as well. So gift-based economics has sort of taken over my life.
Thanks, Marie. That's a lot. And if anyone has been listening to some of my other broadcasts and some of the stuff that I've written before, I I talk about there was a good friend of mine who handed me Charles's book a few years ago that set me down the path, and that good friend was Marie. So I always suggest that she's more of a catalyst than almost anything else and a change maker. So thanks for joining us. Love to get this conversation going too. Beth Thorpe is with us. Good morning, Beth.
Good morning. Let's see. I'm from the Louisville TimeBank. I am on the board there, and it's a TimeBank. It's a little over. It's 2.5 years old now, and it's been really wonderful to be involved with TimeBank because it's such a simple concept where you give an hour of something you do, and then you can spend an hour in something for something else. But what it really turns into is that it builds your community so much, where you know so many more people. There's so many more people in what you consider your inner circle that you trust. I mean, even people on this call. How I know all of you is through time banking, and
right.
Which has really been fun. That's been a really great. I don't know. It's what I do all the time.
Pardon the pun. Tom Morkus is joining us from another part of the world. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Adrian. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm coming at you. Yeah, of course. I'm coming at you with a giant microphone from Peru. And the way I kind of fell into gift economy and pay what you want pricing was actually with pay what you want pricing. I wrote a book about a year ago, and I released it to my audience. I didn't know what to price it at, so I just made it $0 plus. And in the first month, I made about $500 from it, which is pretty extraordinary. I had a pretty small audience, maybe about 100 people following me. And so I thought, wow, one, maybe I can make it as a writer. Two, maybe there's something to this kind of ridiculous, crazy pricing model. And so since then, I've kind of been a student of it, exploring it in depth, analyzing it, talking to you, Adrian, interviewing people like you that are really going 100% into the gift economy, going to pay what you want pricing and all this. And I eventually came out with a book called The Complete Guide to Pay What You Want Pricing, which is essentially a composition of everything I've learned and researched over the course of the last year. And since then, that's taken off, and I now consult for gift-based pricing models, primarily pay what you want pricing. And basically everything I sell is pay what you want pricing, including my consultation and everything like that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Amazing stuff. Thanks for finding a spot to join us from Peru.
Of course.
Chris Yates, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm fantastic.
Where are you joining us from for the audience?
I'm in Paonia, Colorado, which is about halfway between Aspen and Telluride, for those of you that are trying to find me on a map, and you won't be able to. Paonia is a tiny agricultural community that is kind of known for organic farms and orchard and wineries and big food producers, but a small community of about 7,000 people. I'll try to summarize everything I'm doing here, which seems a little overwhelming right now, but
sure.
I've been here for 3 years. I moved here because I had owned a real estate investment firm, and I was playing with lots of money in real estate in the boom, and I had at one point an awakening shortly after 2008 where I was all of a sudden working 20 hours a day trying to hold things together, and I had 2 brand new kids, and I kind of looked around at everything that I thought was important and realized that the world was headed in a direction that I couldn't live with for the sake of my children, and something had to change, and I had to be part of that change immediately. And so we were looking for solutions, and someone handed me Charles Eisenstein's book, Sacred Economics, right about that time. And so I went down the path, and I met Charles and Marie and then Adrian, and started kind of forming a group of other people that understood the problem and wanted to make the change happen. And so we started searching for a place to raise our kids, and we landed here. And I literally thought that I was going to work for free for some of the farms to pull weeds for them in exchange for food. I thought that's where I was headed, and that was fine with me. I was really excited about that, and that was not what happened. It turned out that the community needed the skills that I had left behind and thought were no longer important. And so my work became that my old skills could be the bridge to a new paradigm. And so about 6 months after we moved here, I was able to construct a deal using peer-to-peer funding, local money to purchase an old building. We turned it into a yoga studio that my wife now runs. And part of the classes are gift-based, so people can come in and take yoga classes and pay whatever they want, or not at all, but it's open to the public. And it's the second year in business, and some of the classes are reaching capacity to the extent where we might need a new building, which is almost impossible to pull off in a community of 7,000 people. But it's becoming popular. People are actually coming from neighboring cities now to experience that. I started doing talks on gift economy, and now some of the local businesses are picking it up. We have a local coffee shop here that every day now they do a gift every day based on, they pick a random number in the morning and they have a little clicker for every customer, and when they hit the number they chose, whatever that person orders is a gift. It doesn't matter what they order, how much it was, they give it to them.
Cool.
And now there's kind of a rolling theme in the community because that person feels amazing, and so they end up, they want to pay for somebody else, or they come back the next week and bring friends and say, this is that amazing place I told you about. And so the second project, we did a farm-to-table restaurant, also peer-to-peer funding. We found local people that wanted to get their money off of Wall Street and invest it locally. And so we renovated an old building into a farm-to-table restaurant. It's one of the only really authentic farm-to-table places, because the farmers that live 3 miles away, all the produce goes to that restaurant, and all the food that's served there comes from their place. And it's also a 5-room inn. They pick random days where it's pay what you want now at the restaurant. And then we closed a few months ago. We purchased the community theater, also using local investors, no bank funding at all. And it's being renovated now, and it actually reopens tonight. And then the fourth project I'm sitting in right now, this is the Hive Paonia. This is a co-working space. I could not find a co-working space that existed anywhere in the world in a community this tiny, so of course I had to try that. This is an old telecom building that was vacant for a decade, and it's 5,800 square feet. And so we came up with a hybrid model where we've got 10 private office suites, 2 conference rooms, which were much needed here. I'm sitting in the co-working room, which is 800 square feet, and it doubles as an events room. I'm happy to say that Charles Eisenstein is coming here on July 1st to do a presentation, which will be completely sold out and packed out the building and down the street. I'm certain. And so, the model here in the co-working space has been interesting because the real estate was cheap, because nobody knew what to do with it. I was able to raise the money pretty easily, and now my pricing model is really flexible because the point here is just to get people in the door and be in community together. And we also, with the help of Adrian and Marie, just launched our TimeBank here a couple of months ago as well, which now has a free home inside the Hive space. And so all the meetings are held here. Everything's kind of launched from here. I could talk a lot more, but that's the picture.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Chris and I have been working on a number of things for about a year, me from the website side. So some of these projects I've been pretty intimate with, and other ones I'm just always amazed. And we'll talk a little bit more about common themes that you brought up there. But David Anderson, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about where you are and what you're up to.
Well, I'm currently stationed in southern Utah near Zion National Park.
Awesome.
I'm actually helping on a political campaign. I come from the tech entrepreneur space. I've kind of done first web content and then crowdfunding, and then lately digital currency stuff. And each time I've done a startup along those lines, and on the side, as I've kind of gained expertise in those particular niches, have just kind of started helping people whenever I meet them who have needs in those areas. And I've never really formalized that into the kind of business that you run directly, Adrian, but I'm actually in the process of doing that, and it's been really interesting watching people kind of bring that out into the real world rather than just kind of helping each other informally, as a lot of us have been doing for a long time.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And Stephanie, good morning.
Good morning.
Stephanie Rearick joined us, and thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. So
sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, for the people that aren't familiar with you and your work, go ahead and give us a little background on where you are. I think you're traveling today, and a little bit about what you've been up to.
Yes, I'm here at my parents' house in Akron, Ohio, as a stop on my tour that's wrapping up. I occasionally do sharing economy tours and meet people who are doing things around the world and learn from them and share what we've learned. And I'm based in Madison, Wisconsin, where I run the Dane County Time Bank. We've been around since 2005, and we have about 2,600 members. Before that, I helped start Madison Hour's local currency, and all of this is I've been on an active journey really looking at how we can restructure our economy to better serve people and the planet. And we are just about to take the next step toward creating something called mutual aid networks. And what that is taking a lot of models and practices that are tried and true from around the world. And we're creating a new form of cooperative where the purpose is you can bring together a group of people with the common purpose to create means for everyone to discover and succeed in work they want to do with the support of their community. And with the cooperative structure, we will come together to steward a number of types of sharing economy resources, including time banking and straight up shared resources like maker spaces, co-working spaces, tool libraries, things like that.
Excellent.
And then also business-to-business mutual credit that can be used for more professionalized services in businesses. And then a really important piece is community savings and investment pools. So we're looking to create a system where we can support each other to use this variety of types of resources to really meet the needs of people and really hold people's hands into the sharing economy. So actually it fits a lot with what Jason was talking about, creating these communities of people, not only to support each other with moral support and technical assistance in how you do it, but also have a pool of money, a pool of time, a pool of shared resources that everyone's able to tap into under like very clearly agreed upon terms. So we're just creating that right now, and the idea is really to create a network that everyone on the planet could be engaged in a network that's networked with other sharing economy networks around the world and really create a real solidarity economy from the ground up. So, and this isn't something that a couple of us do. This is something that to make it work, we are just inviting everybody to jump in and participate in whatever way you want to. And so you can find more very basic brand new skeleton of that at mutualaidnetwork.org, or you can read more about it at my blog. Our project is called Time for the World, and we're entering the 5th year of a 5-year project, which has really been seeking possible solutions to the problems that we're facing. And then this is our idea of how to move forward and test this out. So you can read about that at blog.timeftw.org, and hopefully I can help make more sense as we go.
That's really exciting stuff, Stephanie. I am so impressed with this whole panel and the common themes that I think we all share from everywhere in the world where we are. And for me, from my own journey here, and I've talked about that a bit, but there was definitely a moment when I got started, and I talked a lot about how I was going to start making websites for people and do it straight in the gift economy, just based on. And I started the idea, I was only halfway through Sacred Economics, and I was just so blown away, I've just had to start doing something. And as I'm finishing the book and reading it, I'm trying to shape this thing. When I was getting going, I was really, as I mentioned before, really convinced that it was not going to work, that it was going to fail, that it was going to collapse. And what I learned and what brought me to want to have this discussion today is not only didn't it collapse, but it truly just took off beyond my wildest dreams. And the reason it did that, the reason it worked was because of community. And it wasn't apparent to me when I got started, but it became apparent that community is the key to all of this. And whether you're doing virtual work like I am, or endeavoring to go pull weeds like Chrissy Yates was talking about, you find yourself in this space where you're not exactly sure how you ended up there, but suddenly the serendipity happens and everything's coming together, and this community that you didn't even know existed is now surrounding you. So what I wanted to talk about today with everybody and get a conversation going is what that community looks like, because in a lot of cases, for a lot of people, you may be somewhere in the world where you feel like you're by yourself. Maybe you're sitting in your house or your apartment, and these ideas sound great, but you're not sure how to get started or who else is doing it. So I wanted to talk about some of those topics today and sort of kick things off with, I have a quote here that I wanted to read from Charles Eisenstein from Sacred Economics that I have printed up on a wall in front of me, and I think about a lot. And the quote is, "Community is woven from gifts, unlike money or barter transactions in which there are no obligations remaining after the transaction. Gifts always imply future gifts." And I think that's a powerful statement. And when we talk about the gift economy and the sharing economy, that's something that I need to come back to a bit. So when we talk about how this community is being built and the impacts of gifts, that's where I'd really sort of like to dive in. So Marie, if you don't mind me jumping right to you, because you're the most intimate with Charles's work, this topic of gifting within a community and the reciprocity that comes back or should come back or shouldn't come back has come up a little bit in some of the online discussions that we've had in a group that you started. Do you want to expound on that a little bit?
Sure. I think that we live in a culture where, in our first world culture, where gifts actually, in our mind, implies that there's no expectation of return, and actually the idea of anonymity seems important and sort of infused with our idea of gifts. And gift and charity is interconnected. And the kind of gifting that Charles talks about is actually a gifting that's based in community and is based in the idea that gifting is seen, and your presence in the community as a person who gives of themselves to the community is seen as a positive and is also a social construct that is supported by the community. And in return, your community then supports you because you're a giver. And that the gifting always implies a reciprocity. So what we have is a conundrum, because many people think of gifting as they want to be anonymous. They want it to be for people who have less than them. They want to control that their gift is a charity that has an impact on somebody who maybe is less fortunate. But that isn't the kind of gifting that's implied in a gift economic model, at least in my understanding of it. What's implied is that you give to your community, you give of your gifts, you create things for your community, you create things with your community, and you are seen as a generous person. And in return, at some unspecified date or maybe a specified date, the community will then in turn support you with your needs when you have needs. And that may sound like it's impossible, an impossible thing to happen, but I've actually, in the last 4, 5, 6 years, watched it happen and develop and grow exponentially. My community is about the size of Chris Yates's community. We have a community of 5,500 people. And the TimeBank and through gifting models, the whole community is, well, not the whole community, but a lot of people in this community are very invested in gifting. And with this idea of gifting as a community endeavor that is visible, I've seen wonderful things happen. So is that what you wanted?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, and it really starts to, as I'm thinking about the people that are in the group here, and when we start to sort of look at what is a gift and how a gift economy works, I want to make sure we are also talking about the different ways that people are doing it. Like, for instance, you mentioned time banking. Stephanie is extremely involved in time banking, as is Beth. When I look at different ways to sort of go down this path, the need for community arises, and I think time banking, and Chris Yates is involved as well. I think time banking is an incredible tool for building community that I'm not sure that a lot of people are even familiar with, or how easy it is to get going. Mm-hmm. Beth Thorpe, I met earlier in the year. I was doing some work for National TimeBanks organization, and that's how we met there. Beth, do you mind kind of jumping in and talking a little bit about how, from your perspective, time banking can sort of build community in this new economy?
Sure. Time banking, well, like I said in the introduction, I mean, it seems very simplistic, and a lot of times when people first hear about it, they're like, okay, it switches. It's kind of like barter. People do jobs for each other, and okay, and that's about all they get. And then, but as time goes on, you see how much it builds your community. Well, honestly, Adrian, I'm going to use you as an example.
Sure.
We had met through time banking, and we knew several the same people. And earlier this spring, I had a software or a website problem for my time bank, and it was at a really bad point. It was at a really, really bad point. And through our things that we had done together already, he came in and rescued me and just put up a new website for us. And it's those connections that you make. I mean, and that's a virtual one. I'm going to give a local one.
Sure.
In my time bank, I had a gentleman join. We had a gentleman join a year plus ago, and he's done a lot of great things for people. And a year ago, I helped to organize a really big clean up his barn. He's a jack of all trades, make everything, and put in a lot of hours, a lot of support to that. And if you think of barter, you're like, well, what did you get in return right then? What did you negotiate? That's not how it works. It's
right.
Like time credits for your time, and as time's gone on, he helped me make something. But most recently, he is going to help me go to St. Louis, where I have a rental house. But I have something very expensive that needs to be fixed that I thought I was going to be out a lot of money. This is going to actually get me probably to a time banking conference in July that I don't have to spend it. He's going to come with me, fix something very complicated that I thought I was going to have to drop a couple $1,000s on. And yay. Did I negotiate it in advance? No. But over blueberry picking the other day, we figured out this was all possible. So community makes a difference, and so it's a little difficult, I think, sometimes to get across. That I'm sitting here on this call with both Marie and Stephanie. I always know both of them can get it out across much better than myself. When this conversation came up with Adrian, I said, you have to invite Stephanie too.
Well, I think you made a lot of great points, Beth, and the last one is one that speaks to me personally, in that I don't consider myself personally a thought leader in this space at all, but you are on the ground doing this, making it happen, and I think your perspective is really important to share, because there's a lot of brilliant people who can explain what I'm doing a lot better than I can, but as far as talking about the nuts and bolts of making it happen on a day-to-day basis, I think that is important as well. So this idea of a community, Chris Yates, you had mentioned a couple of things that made me chuckle a little bit. One, that you sort of backed into this community advisor role, if you will, and that you sort of came into it looking to pull weeds and ended up taking your, if you will, your old life skills and finding a way to apply them in this new economy drive and becoming really a leader in that community in a lot of different ways. So how has that experience been for you, and what is the community like now from when you first started?
Well, I can only judge what the community is like now based on feedback I get from the people that were here before me. It's always kind of a surprise. I walk up and down the commercial district of our town, which is about 2 blocks, and that takes me an hour anytime I set foot on the street, because people constantly stop me and want to talk about something that just happened or something that's about to happen, or strangers will point at me and go, hey, that's Chris Yates, let's talk to him. And I feel like I'm in Hollywood or something. And and I know a lot of people here, but it's funny because people are coming to me now and I don't even know who they are, and they're walking up and going, thank you so much for what you're doing here. And it happens to me constantly, and I'm just going, this is amazing.
Right.
You know, when I was busting my tail for money, thinking I was building something great, no one thanked me. It didn't make any difference. It didn't matter at all. And now I'm doing things that are not very profitable in the old paradigm of money, right? I'm doing it because I'm trying to build something better for the community and for my kids, because I believe not only is it possible, I see it as real. And so I'm passionate. It's my purpose now. And people are coming to thank me for it, and they're saying things like, you know, I've been here for 10 years and this is how the community was, and since you and your family moved here, things have changed so much. You've brought so much light and vibrance to this place. And I'm just going, man, I can't even get an ego about that, because I'm thinking, thank you to, you know, Charles, and for all these people I've met, and for all this inspiration that's come to me that made that sync happen within me, that said, oh wait, you're still useful in this world. We still need what you used to do for different reasons. And so and I don't actually feel like important or special in what I'm doing. I'm more in a place of gratitude that I am doing something that's making a difference and that it's helping people. And so for me, when people are thanking me, I'm feeling the sense of gratitude, and then I want to go do even more of it. And that kind of is a summary for me of what gift really is when we're just overwhelmed with gratitude all the time for each other, and that is the fuel that inspires me to continue. So at this point, you know, it's, yes, we have to make things work financially to some extent, but it's not my primary concern anymore. It's like, okay, it has to survive, but that's not what I'm doing. But then I find that when I come from that place and it's all about how can we support more people, then they come and support me too. And sometimes that is financially, and they go, hey, let me pay more than you are asking for, because I want to make sure that you don't have to worry about that. And people just show up that way and support, and it's still amazing every day.
It is amazing, and I draw a lot of personal inspiration from following a lot of what all of you are doing in the different ways that we follow each other today, social media or anything like that. And I draw a lot of inspiration on those days where the self-doubt comes in or the self-questioning comes in, just knowing that other people are out there doing this as well. Tom, I have a question for you. You're still with us? You didn't drop off from Peru yet?
Still here.
All right, cool. So Chris Yates is out there, and he's got this awesome community that's now bubbling and vibrant, and he gets this sort of visceral feedback, this physical contact with people face-to-face, saying, wow, thanks for what you're doing. It's a huge inspiration. How can I help more? And cycles that feedback back into more inspiration. But you've been traveling a bit. You've been traveling since you started on this path, and kind of been bouncing all over the world as I've been following you. So you don't have that much of the face-to-face, eye-to-eye feedback. Can you share with us some ways that you've been able to sort of build a community nonetheless, even as you're sort of globe-trotting around?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that, because as I was listening to Chris, I was thinking to myself, man, like, that is nice getting that in-person feedback, and it's something I haven't gotten to experience yet, but it's okay. Like, I'm not complaining, but it's just interesting, because I think part of the power of the gift and living and working in the gift economy is to be surrounded with a community that can support you. And so because I've been traveling, I don't have that in person. But what's really cool about the internet and the technology we have available at our fingertips is it's possible to create a gift economy business and to live in the gift, at least to a degree, from anywhere in the world. And so the way I did that was essentially started just by releasing stuff that I was creating as pay what you want, letting people choose the price. And then with some success from that, leveraging that success in other projects. So when I started my publishing company, I said to myself, well, how can I take the same concepts that I really appreciate here and make it into like something that's profitable and sustainable, but still have the same like heart-centeredness and stuff that focuses on the gift economy and pay what you want pricing. So one of our premier products was as a business journal, and made it donation-based. And then we also made it so that you can contribute as much as you want, up to 100% to Kiva.org, where we give no interest microloans to entrepreneurs all around the world. So by doing little things like this, and then through consulting as well, like saying, hey, like it's not about price or anything like that. It's pay what you want, but I've also kind of done gift-based with that as well, saying if people don't have money but they have a skill set or they'd like to give me in some other way, I accept that as well. And so little by little, as I blog about this stuff, as I write about it, as I help people, whether through consulting or other means, or help others launch projects. I'm working with Jason on the Flight Formula was good too, and really powerful for me, because it just little by little I've made connections. Yeah, online, but they become very real connections because people email you, and they're these long form emails, and it's this real communication, and it's this real writing back and forth, and then also just hopping on calls. Even just getting on a call like this, like Google Hangout, and getting to see your faces and getting to talk to all you, that's powerful. It means a lot, and it helps bring a cohesiveness to something that would otherwise be really difficult and to do by yourself, to live in the gift. But now that I have you guys here to support me, it's easier for me. So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think it's fantastic perspective, and I think some common themes are in there as well. This idea of using technology and virtual tools to sort of help bridge the gap, because we don't all have that village economy that maybe Chris and Marie are able to start building within their community. I live in a huge city. I live here in Philadelphia, and it's a big city full of big city warts. And so trying to use technology to sort of bridge some of that and create the virtual village, if you will, is something that a lot of people have approached me with and saying like, hey, can we build something like this? Can we get a website going or something like that? And it has always felt like too big of a pie for me to take on. But if I understand sort of how you present it, what you're doing these days, Stephanie, it sounds like you really have been doing a lot of work toward creating that platform or that type of environment that can bring all of us together in sort of a networked place where we can share our experiences and our tools. And can you expand a little bit on that aspect of your work?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to mention something that's been happening for the last couple of years, because Beth and Marie have been really participating a lot in it, and a lot of people from around the world. We've just been going through this process called Knit a Network, where it's just engaging a lot of time bankers and beyond, not just time bankers, other people in the cooperative economy movement, but especially focused on time banking. But people who use different softwares, who are affiliated with different organizations, not affiliated with organizations, just coming together to support each other in our work and really compile all the materials that everyone's generated over the years. We've been collecting and sorting a knowledge commons of materials and proposals and things like that to really share with people and make it easier for people to start and sustain projects like this. We're developing a catalog of peer trainers and mentors. So that's something that people have been working on for a long time, and we're expecting that at the beginning of August, there's a global exchange gathering in Providence, Rhode Island, that if you're participating in this, you really might be interested in that, July 31st to August 3rd. But we'll be gathering just before that for a leadership retreat and really working to get a lot of this stuff published and visible, just to make it easier for people to tap in and see what's already been done and build on the work of others. And then with the mutual aid network structure, that's my next step. So I'm going to be not just focused on time banking solely anymore, just always as one really important component of the work that we're doing. So the idea with the mutual aid network is you can have local ones, but we can all be networked, and we're calling it the main man. So we call mutual aid network or the man, so you could develop your dream job working for the man. But the main man is a way that we can, is its own cooperative, and we can have members from around the world, organizations and individuals, and we're just getting that structure up and running. So by August, we expect to be able to really have membership with clear rights and responsibilities, and that the idea there is we can pool and share resources on a global scale, and that each of our local projects will be able to tap into technical assistance at a higher level than what we'd be able to access individually. So really that will be a global cooperative, and we'll be playing with how we make agreements between cooperatives in different countries, or between like-minded projects in different areas. And each of us will be responsible for for taking on some of the legal and financial questions around sustaining this kind of work. So it's really looking to address the social pieces and the legal pieces and the evaluation pieces that we haven't yet been able to really tackle, largely because each of us is really struggling to get the resources of all types that we need for our own local activities. So this is another chance to become sort of greater than the sum of our parts and really take it to the next step and formalize some aspects of the sharing economy in ways that can protect us and also give us access to more significant types of resources. And really get serious, really build an economy based on these principles and create something that can flow like water instead of having to be pushed along like string.
Right, and I like one of your last phrases there of get serious, because I feel like we're sort of at this tipping point now. I had the pleasure of listening to Ian McKenzie last fall give a quick presentation on crowdfunding and how that works, and I bring up this paraphrase a lot, in that he made a point of talking about how we're sort of stuck with one foot in this old economy where we still have to exist, we still have bills, we still have rent and mortgage, and all of this push toward the new economy, and we're at this point, I feel like, where we are all getting serious now. We're all saying, it's not just an experiment. It doesn't have to just be an experiment. It's a real movement that's going on, and there's a lot of people moving it forward and making it happen. You talk about technology. Anybody that's sort of followed me a bit on social media or other places knows that technology is near and dear to my heart. And there's always this mindset that technology can destroy community, that it isolates us, that it pulls us apart, that we spend so much time looking at screens instead of looking and talking to our neighbors. And I think a lot of that is real problems. But I'm also of the camp of, technology is really what is allowing this movement to take off, is what is allowing us to get serious, is using some of these tools just like we're using now that were unimaginable even 5 or 6 years ago, to sort of get things going and moving in the right direction. David, you spend a lot of time on the technological side as much as I do, and probably even more. What are your thoughts on the way that technology can sort of be used to grow and build community?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are really down on the technological world for being so disconnecting in a lot of ways from the in-person interaction that people are used to valuing. My experience is more that I've found the same support that everyone here has in being crazy in these kind of ways as far as the normal economy is concerned, and that's empowered me to go back offline and kind of show that example in my everyday life and kind of help build that in the area that I actually am. So I see it as the ability to kind of bridge that gap with wherever we are, and then take that home to people who are kind of more entrenched in the normal economy and can kind of set that example. I always go back to the example or I guess a story that Charles tells in Sacred Economics, when I think about this whole kind of weird idea that everyone can just support each other and no one's going to really end up screwing each other. It always goes back to what happened when anthropologists found tribes in Africa and saw that even though they had the ability to, they never actually stored their individual kill. They would always just share it with their community immediately and have a big party. And when anthropologists asked them why they did that, even though they knew that they could store it for them and their family only if they wanted to, they said, "I store my meat in the belly of my brother." And to me, it's about expanding what the definition of your brother is, right? It goes from your family to your community, outwards and outwards, right? So I think we can find our tribes online, and I think a lot of us have, and then start to take that back offline to who our immediate family is, our immediate community, and when people see you acting that way and see you kind of putting yourself out there and being potentially vulnerable, and they see you over time still surviving and being happy and thriving, it makes it much easier for them to take the leap also, and And so I think all of us here, even in ways we don't realize, I think most of the time are setting that example for others, and I think it's really good to see.
I think that's a fantastic point, and it's caused me to shift a little bit in my own activities and not to get sort of ego driven as far as like I need to set a good example, but at the same time a lot of people are looking at what I'm doing and how it's working, and so in a way I do need to set a good example, and I do need to share that, you know, there are ways that you can work differently than you've been taught you had to work, and there are ways to do it successfully, and here are some of those ways. You mentioned Tribe, which I know is something that's near and dear to Jason's heart, and Jason, I think this is a great segue to come in because we've talked a little bit about some face-to-face building of community and also the use of technology to do it. And you, from my perspective, sort of have a hybrid of both of those things where you use technology to great advantage to sort of promote your idea and your project, but the bulk of the idea and the project is getting face-to-face with people in a retreat type setting where you're getting intimate knowledge of everybody and sort of getting down to the nuts and bolts of working together as human beings. So, and I may not have described that exactly right, but I would love for you to kind of expound on that a bit.
No, that's beautiful. That's a great way to put it, Adrian. I think as we're talking about gift economy, I think that when I look at gift, I see that every single person on this planet has a gift. And I believe that it's rooted in our heart. We are the gift. And I think the biggest problem is not necessarily a money problem. I see it as more of a spirituality and a relationship, community problem like we've been talking about today. And so throughout our lives, we receive all these different messages from the world about our gift. And a lot of these messages are things like, we're not enough, we're not beautiful, we're not worthy, we're not strong. And we receive all of these messages, and when we're inside of our heads and hearing these voices our entire lives, it's so easy to suppress the gift, put the gift behind a wall, don't let the gift out, because we don't want it to be in a place where it can get hurt again. And so what we do is we love to bring communities of people together, create a safe environment, a safe space where people feel supported, loved, and accepted for exactly who they are. And we give them an opportunity to hear exactly what their gift is, what their beauty is, what their strength is, why they're worthy to unleash this gift to the world. And they hear it through the lens of all of these other people around the tribe. And so it's not just coming from themselves, but they're hearing it from the community space. And when you can hear something like that, the truth about yourself, what you really are, and the gift you really contain, when people can share that with you directly, it is one of the most powerful moments I have ever experienced in my life, Adrian. It is absolutely magical. And from that place, if you can start from that place, the truth about your gift and who you are, the sky's the limit. That's why we call it the flight formula. You can fly from that point. And that's what we're all about.
I think that's fantastic. And you have had a couple sessions that already got underway this year, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just got done a retreat in Asheville here last week. So I'm deeply inspired from that experience.
Right on. I think I think these are all really amazing, wonderful ways that we are connecting with each other and finding ways to connect with each other. Marie, I want to come back to you for a minute because well, you just bring so much to the table in this area. One of the things that you started just in the last few months, Marie is deeply involved in the transition movement. And transitiontownmedia.org is a space where you can learn a little bit about that. And the transition movement itself has really, from my perspective, really helped to bind her community together in all sorts of different ways and different ideas and different platforms that people are using to build this. One of the initiatives that Marie has been involved with in the last few weeks is launching a FreeStore. And I know this is something that is new and shocking to a lot of people, this entire concept, which is maybe rooted in one of the oldest concepts as a human being that we have. But can you share with us how that process has gone and sort of explain what a FreeStore is and how it's been going in its first few weeks?
Sure. So a free store base, it's exactly what it sounds like. There isn't a catch. Everything in the store is free. We have an inexpensive rent. We are paying a fixed rent at a church that has an address on State Street, which is our main street. And but the rent that we're paying is a very small fraction of what normally people would pay on this street. The street, it's very, very expensive to buy or rent real estate there. So this church gave us this room, and we are a suburb of Philadelphia that has a great abundance. Everybody here not only has, not everybody, but a lot of people here have a lot. And they also, there's a community of thrift and keeping things out of landfills and enjoying that experience of reuse. We've done events on creative reuse and keeping things out of landfills. We do garage sale fairs where things are free. And we really realized that we probably could support a space where people could donate, like a Goodwill, people could donate their items, and then we could give them away to anybody. And it isn't just based on need. Anybody can come in. And we also wanted to create a community space. And so when we got wind of this this space that we could potentially rent for cheap, we grabbed it. And so in the last 2 months, we've scurried to put this together, and in the last 10 days, we opened. And it's been an extremely interesting thing to watch the reaction of the community. Most people are enthusiastic. A lot of people that I'm hearing through others, no one has said it to me directly, but they're very suspicious. They don't think it will work. They think it's the stupidest business model they've ever heard of in their lives, and it will fail immediately. They can't believe that we would be doing something like this, and it's surprisingly not the other businesses on State Street. They've been very supportive of what we're doing. It's just people in our town. So we have some work to do to show them that it will actually succeed as a model. And in fact, we've taken in donations over the last 10 days that has completely paid our rent and is going to help us create some printed material so that we can expand our reach to church groups and domestic abuse centers and in areas outside of Philadelphia near here that are maybe have material need for things that are donated in a way that we can provide. So our business model is working very successfully, actually, and I'm really proud of my community for coming around and really participating. All of the store is kept open by volunteers. We have 50 people who have signed up for shifts throughout the summer, and it's growing every day, and we pay them with time dollars through our TimeBank. So that's how it works.
It's so amazing and fantastic, and one of the things that ties in even more to what we're talking about today is there's a Facebook group which I can't recommend enough for helping to sort of bind people together as we're moving forward. So there's a Facebook group just for this FreeStore, and we could spend a whole hour talking about some of the topics that have come up there in the past week. But one of them that has come up is what if somebody comes into the FreeStore and is taking things just for resale, and does that change the relationship if the FreeStore is set up, if people are gifting things to the FreeStore, the hope that it's going to people in need, but people are taking them and their need is to resell the items for a profit, instinctively that feels like it's against the spirit of what the FreeStore is about. But then at the same time, there's an argument that can be made that a gift needs to be freely given without expectations of how a user is going to use it. So there's been just a fascinating discussion there. That has been one of the most stimulating discussions that I've had on this topic in a while. So I think that's a great example of starting something real and tangible within a community, and then using online technology to sort of explore some of the deeper issues that evolve behind the scenes. Because honestly, if you think about it, that's a topic. It was a very controversial question, but it's a question that couldn't really be handled that well without social media.
Right.
10 years ago, it would have been people just sort of gossiping and calling people on the phone on a one-on-one basis. But here we had this input from all these people coming in with all these great views, and it was really to me a show of what technology can really provide us as we're trying to grow this forward.
It also allows for transparency, which I think if you're
Mhm.
trying to do something as innovative as the things that we're all doing here, and you're doing it in community where people might be slightly suspicious or not understand, it sort of tweaks their idea of what gifting is, and sort of subverts it in a way. So they're suspicious. And if you do it, we really aim, transition in general as a movement, and our transition town in particular aims for pretty radical transparency in what we are attempting to do here. And having this discussion in an open Facebook group with it's like 130 comments at this point and only like 24 hours, it's crazy. But that kind of radical transparency is really important to build trust. And I think that has to be the foundation of everything that you're doing is radical, the sort of radical transparency.
I think that's a fantastic point. And we're getting close to the end of the hour here, and I don't want to stifle us, but I definitely wanted to cover a little bit about time banking, which we did, and we got in a little bit about transition and FreeStore. The people who are working in the gift got to share a little bit about that and how we're using technology. One other area that Chris Yates can talk a little bit about here too, that's near and dear to my heart is the idea of co-working and what co-working is and how that can build community. And I could talk a lot about this from my own side as a user of co-working spaces and a lover of co-working spaces. But Chris, I'd love to hear from you as somebody who's sort of taken an empty space from the ground up and built a new co-working space and got it launched.
Yeah, it's been interesting, especially in a community where there's not a lot of people, most of which have no idea what co-working is. We're right in that launch period right now where we've filled the private suites and people want to use the conference room, but then they walk into this space that is amazing. I mean, we were able to, for not much money, build what I would consider a world-class facility, and so people come in with their eyes wide and go, "What is this place?" And I have to begin with the relationship, which is perfect because to work in the gift, what I've discovered is I can't just tell somebody, well, it's a gift, pay what you want or use the space or any of these things. It really has to start with a very close, transparent relationship. I tried to lease the suites early on a gift basis, and it didn't actually work because people would come in and they'd look around and go, well, wait a minute, what's the rent? And I'll say, well, here's the market rent, and here is the cost I have to run this building. I want you to pay whatever you want. And there's an old saying, the confused mind always says no.
Right.
And I developed along the way, I thought, and co-working actually became kind of an afterthought. When I started the building, I didn't think it would work here, and then I started finding out that all these projects we were working on, they needed a hub. They needed a place where the community could come together and work on this stuff and share the collective resources that existed. And a lot of community organizations and startups were struggling because they didn't have space, they didn't have funding, or they didn't have technology, or they didn't have these things. And I thought, well, wait a minute, we can do this all in one spot. And if everybody kicks in what they can along the way and we're not attached to how that looks, then everybody has all the resources they need now. And so all these things we're working on can get off the ground. And so for me, the idea of co-working was about, let's centralize resources and open them up so everybody has the technology, the space, all of that. But then what happens is these relationships come together in the co-working space that didn't exist before. So even in a community that's so tiny, people didn't talk to each other. We were all, categorized as that person does that person does that, but they had no idea what their skill sets really were. And you put them in a space together, and you overhear conversations, and then they go, "Hey, I can do that for you," or "I just heard that you had this challenge. My brother does that. Why don't we just?" And all of a sudden, it just goes pop, 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 and it starts happening. And so, for hardly any money, really, everything gets done without money, and so these startups launch and people's jobs improve and they get more clients, and just everything takes off, and it's really kind of magical to watch.
And that's really been my experience as well. I'm with my second co-working space here in Philly now. It's called City Coho, and where I use it now from when I started is kind of different. I work from home, and a year ago it was just me by myself, but with a brand new baby. So there were times when I needed some space outside of the house to just get some professional quiet, if you will. And so the co-working space that was in my neighborhood worked out great. Now, however, things have sort of shifted within a year, and I have a team of people that I work with, graphic designers and developers, and they all sort of came to me on their own. Oddly enough, the majority of them live here in Philadelphia as well. So what we do with the City Coho space is just once a month, we use that to all come in and work together on one big table. And so the rest of the month, we're all sort of using things like Google Hangout and different technology-based platforms, different cloud-based things to sort of share our work and so on. But then once a month, we get to meet face-to-face and sort of, spin our screens around and say, take a look at this. What do you think of this? In a real-time place, and share some food and sort of have that personal connection, which is fantastic. And then a lot of what Chris was suggesting, what I found is every time we go there, some new connection is made. Somebody else is sharing that same space who either overhears us or they have a little kind of food prep area there where we can mingle, and sort of gets an idea of like, you do what? You work in a gift economy. What is that? And being able to share what we do is mind-blowing to people. And then opportunities arise. They're like, wow, I could really use your help with something like this. And maybe you could use some help with what we do. And every time we go, and we just go once a month for now, but every time we go, something amazing happens. So to me, it's really a great example of the serendipity that sort of surrounds this whole movement toward the new economy. And again, I'll paraphrase something that Charles says in one of the videos. I think the video that Sustainable Man put together, and it's a cheap paraphrase, so bear with me. But basically, that the more you put yourself out there, the more the universe will respond with new opportunities and new ways for you to give. So the more you reach out and step out into the community, I believe the more you'll find community just sort of evolves around you and pops up in ways you couldn't possibly imagine. So here we are. We're sort of at the end. We didn't get to any of the questions that were posted, but if I can squeeze a few more minutes out of you guys, I'd like to at least get to this first one that came through from Rhonda. And I'm going to throw it out to the group, and I'd love for whoever feels inspired to jump in on the conversation to sort of answer back and try not to leave us with too much dead space as you all wonder who is going to talk. But the question from Rhonda is the gift economy only possible for those who don't need the money, or is this something that requires a type of target marketing? And I think this is a great question. We talk about what does the community look like. So I'll throw that out to the group. Anybody want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think in my... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to quickly say that's one of the reasons that we're really working on pulling together things like community saving and investment pools and time banking and things to make it so it's not just available to people who already have money. I think, as a group, I don't know what situation everyone comes to or comes from, but I do think it's common for people to start things like this who have generally been enfranchised and empowered throughout their lives. I have advantages in that way. I've been used to having a voice that can be heard. I think part of the reason the economy is ripe for a change, fortunately and unfortunately, is it's never been working for huge swaths of the population. Now that it's not working for people who have formerly been middle class, who've been used to being enfranchised, more people are doing something about it. So maybe it's unfortunate that it's taken that to get here, but it's fortunate that it's gotten here. And I think it's really essential that we create ways that everyone can access it. That's why I think time banking as a formal system is really powerful, because it creates an entry point for everyone. So you don't already have to know people. You don't already have to be predisposed to this. And And that's one of the things that I think is really important about creating this sort of community security. I try to be very quick about this, but as it is now, when someone wants to contribute to a low-income neighborhood, they have to give to a nonprofit who often hires someone from outside the neighborhood to go do work there. With mutual aid networks, we're working to create a situation where you can invest directly in that neighborhood, and that pool of money is managed by people in that neighborhood as a cooperative, where people can identify what work needs to be done to make their community whole and more beautiful and what they dream of, and they can do that work and be compensated in a variety of means. So this is really an effort to make this accessible to everyone, and I think it's really important for us to keep that in the forefront of our minds as we move forward in a sharing and gift economy. Yes, it's available to us. Is it available to everyone? And I'm not interested in creating another economy that excludes people. We have one.
That's great. That's great. I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I'd love anybody else to jump in as well.
Yeah, for me, I think the big observation is that the money that we currently know basically rewards, or at least has the strong possibility of rewarding all kinds of exploitative things, whereas anything that really helps people, any kind of work in the world that really is focused on helping people, the proportion to which it helps people is basically the proportion to which it's not rewarded in dollars right now. And so when you see things like TimeBanks really start to pop up, that's kind of filling in that gap where the things that we do value as individuals and communities within our tribes can actually be rewarded, and the value that people give can actually be stored and then used again, which is something we've had other mediums of exchange, but it's hard to create stores of value unless you can kind of do so within a trusted community. So you don't, I mean, the thing about TimeBanks is that they specifically make it so you don't need money to get things accomplished, which is the great thing that I've seen and where I've participated in the Bay Area. The TimeBank there, Bay Area Community Exchange, is specifically chartered for poor people who really need to get as much accomplished through non-monetary means as possible so they can save what they do have for rent and utilities. So I think all of this, anything you can do to work in the gift or work within an alternative economy actually helps compensate for the lack of standard monetary resources that people can feel in this situation.
Awesome point.
I wanted to add just one quick thing that
Sure.
as in anything, you have audiences that are sort of like a concentric circle. So you have people who immediately understand what you're trying to do by a gift-based business, either because they're familiar with this work or they've participated in before, or it just intuitively feels right to them. And then you have people who think it's great but are wary, and then people who are suspicious and people who are outright hostile. And those are rare and they usually don't talk to you. But what you have to do is you have to market yourself and speak a language, and try and intuitively understand who you're speaking to at that moment, right, where they sit on that spectrum. And it's a skill, and it's one that you learn by having conversations, and then you target your language to bring them in, just maybe into the next circle, right? And that sometimes takes time, and it always goes back to relationship and transparency, and it's building the trust that underlies that. So yes, you can actually have a gift-based business that does bring in people who are indifferent or even hostile to what you're doing over time, but it takes constant messaging, constant reassuring that you're not trying to scam them, because what they're used to in our monetary system is that everybody's out to get something out of them. But in a gift-based business, often we're not. We're just giving our gifts and knowing that it will be returned at some point in some way through the community. So you have to work on sort of intuiting where that person is, and then work at having an elevator pitch or whatever that talks to them.
Can I say one thing too?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I'll keep it quick. I think just everything that's been highlighted is pretty solid. One thing, though, I think people get confused when it comes to gift-based stuff and to pay what you want pricing, is they automatically think the lowest common denominator. They think, okay, I'm doing this so that people with without money or those less fortunate can have access to what I'm doing, which is certainly part of it. But that ignores the other half of it, which is that we're taking away the cap of what the most generous people can give. Mm-hmm. So I think the paradigm there is wrong to think of it always like this, like how like if we're just lowering the bar when we should look at it as we're releasing the cap on the top.
Mm-hmm.
So with the question I asked you, whoever asked that question, I would pose a question back to you and say, what gift are you giving, and who are you giving it to? Because if you can give a gift that's worthwhile to somebody and it's valuable, and you can give it to enough people, you'll find that a small percentage of the population, not everybody, but a small percentage will be so enormously generous that they'll make up for everybody else who may not have been as generous. And that's been the case with me. Coming from very little money and building this businesses, bootstrapping what I've been doing, and everything has been pay what you want. That's been my experience. So just for what it's worth.
I think that's a great point, and I think this question alone we could probably dive into for an hour or two, because I look at the question a little bit, and I think a little bit more along with how Stephanie was viewing it too, is, you know, how do you start in this type of business as well, and is starting this type of business, this type of new economy, this sort of, you know, I'm into the gifting, I'm into sharing, and into sustainability. Is that limited to people who already have the resources or the privilege, if you will, of being able to kind of jump off on that tangent? Is it the same access for somebody who is disenfranchised to say, I'm going to start a gift economy business, as it is for somebody who has sort of the society's accepted viewpoint of what somebody doing that should be? And by that I mean, for myself, you know, I work in an industry in technology that is very one-sided as far as race and gender, as far as what the coder is supposed to look like, and who that is supposed to be. And if you don't fit that mold, is it as easy to start a gift economy business designing websites if you're not a Caucasian male? And I think that's a really powerful, fair question that I would love to have a whole other discussion on, because I think it opens up just a whole lot of different views. So you have sort of from this one question the idea of can anybody start a gift economy, and if you do, can the gift economy resources be for anybody, or is it just for people who have need, or is it, like Tom says, should it be something that blows the cap off the top as well? I think these are incredible topics that we need to talk about and spend some more time on. But I probably want to wrap it up today. So I want to go back around and see if anybody else has anything else they want to add before we sign off for the day. Any other comments or questions to bring up?
Yeah, I'd like to just respond to that question really quickly and just say that I think that when we look at who can participate in the gift economy, who has access to it, where, you know, who is it best suited for? When I look at the problems of the world and all of the unmet needs out there, I think the biggest problem is a disconnection between people and their gifts. There's not enough people fully alive operating out of their gift. And so if we can start there, figure out what our gift is, figure out what we're supposed to be doing in the world, and follow that voice that's compelling us to do something beyond ourselves to change the world. If we can start there, I believe that we can attract an amazing level of abundance into our lives in many different ways. That doesn't just mean money. That means community, relationships, love, support, and having our needs met.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anybody else have anything that they want to add on?
I do. One of the things, I think, in answering this question, you know, of who can join, one of the things that I love most about time banking is not something that's talked about a whole lot, or it's not the first thing that people think of, but is how much it raises your social capital, how much that you have. We use the term community, and I think that gets a real fuzzy, loose concept. But I mean, I've seen it very practically link up people that had a need that was outside of a time banking exchange necessarily, but it joined them up with other people that really moved them on in their life. So that just being able to, like, I've seen people get jobs. I've seen people get, help with health care, with advice, linking them up with an appropriate doctor, things along those lines. That the idea building community. Just I think sometimes we all know what that means, kind of, but these real tangible. Anybody can join in on that, and that's I think one of the greatest things about time banking is that you join this community, and really right away you have that tribe, and people a lot of times when other members join, they say welcome to the Louisville Time Bank family,
right.
and that right there, when people see each other like that. That really helps with that, making those connections to whatever you would want to be. I mean, time banking is not necessarily running businesses through it like in the way you are, Adrian, but I think that those kind of ideas, all of those where you can become more connected, makes a huge difference.
Right on, right on. And any other comments from the panel?
I'd like to add one quick thing, and that is, when people ask me about the gift economy, there's this tendency towards making an assumption that it has to be an extreme leap. And people try to picture their life as it is in an old economy and then how it would be in a new one, and they can't see it. So it brings up fear and frustration and anxiety sometimes, and that's where the questions and the aggression sometimes come from. And I did it too. So when I wanted to leave the old, I wanted to do a flying leap into the new, and it was 100% shift, but I'm an extremist. That's my nature. But what I found in that space was that, oh, no, we're in a bridge period right now. And our goal is not to get people completely out of the old money-based system and into the gift economy. It's to open the door and let them look through, and then take their hand and walk them through at their own pace and go, you know what, you don't have to do all your work as a gift. How about you just take 10% or 5% of what you were going to do for money, and you do that as a gift. And let's begin there. And maybe it's not even what you do for a living. Maybe you're a doctor, but you weave baskets on the side because you enjoy it. How about that's your gift over there, and you keep doing this thing that you need to make money, and you make the transition at a pace that is comfortable to you, but the important part of it is to begin. So don't think you have to change your entire life yet. It's going to change for you. And that's been the best guidance I've been able to give people.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I think Chris is totally right. I see all human interactions basically as this spectrum, whereas naturally it's just relationships and favors we do for each other and gifts we give each other, and our whole world has been turned into this commodified transactional model. And all interactions you have with people are going to be somewhere on that spectrum. If you buy electronics in China, you're going to spend dollars, and it's going to be a direct, transaction. And on the other end, if you, you just help someone out in your community, and you're not going to charge them for, whatever favor you did for them, that's the opposite side of that. And everyone has to go through that that process of doing more and more things differently. There will always be, at least for the foreseeable future, some things that we have to do in a transactional way because they're just necessarily interpersonal. But we can't get hung up on that and let that stop us from starting to do things in a different way wherever the opportunity presents itself.
I think that's a perfect point to wrap up with. And I think a lot of the value of what we talked about today and can offer out there to the global community is just that point that the last few of you have really expounded on. Don't get hung up on being stuck in the old economy, and don't feel like you have to dive in 100%. From my own experience, I was doing web design on the side. It was just something that I did for over a dozen years. When I got the idea for the gift economy, I thought I would just do maybe one or two a year, but it wasn't my living. It wasn't what I was doing as my full-time job. And I thought I will experiment a little bit of my time because I think this is a really cool idea. And it has taken off. It took off very quickly. In that maybe, like Chris said, basket weaving is just your hobby, but you never know. You never know what the community needs are. I didn't realize what the needs of my skills were in the larger community, and now that's my full-time obsession or employment or career or whatever you want to call it, but it's what I do all day long. And everything else I was doing has kind of been shut down, so I'm now doing this right in the gift, and it's not what I thought, and it's not, I didn't plan on jumping in 100%, but I just sort of followed the path, and that's where it led to. So I appreciate everybody's input today. I think this was a phenomenal discussion. I wish we had an unlimited amount of time, but I'll be contacting you guys again, and I'd love to sort of take some of the topics that we talked about today with a broad stroke and sort of spend an hour or so diving into them individually. But until then, until next time, I'll say thanks to the panel for joining us, and thanks for all the viewers that are out there, and keep things going. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
See ya.